Welcome to Self Wellness.
What's going on, guys? Another great episode of Maha with Mike. Today, we're going to be diving into the measles case, which supposedly has doubled since the last time we had on Dr. Cole. And we're also going to be digging into the artificial dyes that are poisoning our children with Dr. Marble in the second segment of the show. So, without any further ado, I want to welcome everybody back. I hope everybody had a happy Easter. I hope everybody had fantastic time traveling and visiting their family and made it home safe. Let's dive into Texas and Oklahoma's supposedly outbreak that's just destroying the entire country, and I'm sure it's all Robert F. Kennedy's fault. Let's bring in Dr. Ryan Cole, board-certified clinical pathologist. How are you, bud?
Great to see you again, Mike. Good to Maha with you on a Wednesday morning here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I was hoping you were going to have one of those acoustic guitars out, and you had it already tuned up and ready to go, and maybe you could do a rendition of Luke Combs or something for us. But at least you're here.
Maybe next show I'll do that for you. You're going to coax me into one of these shows. I'm going to walk back there. I mean, you're tempting me.
third time's a charm. So tell me what are your thoughts on these numbers that are coming out that's here in Texas? Is this all fear porn? Is there anything to it? Does it just happen to be coincidental timing? I know that the same four news media outlets that we've always had in our mainstream media they're all in cahoots and they all answer to one subservient leader. But what's the actual concern going on with these young kids and these measles outbreaks right now?
Well, I mean, the concern is children are sick and adults are sick, and the vaccinated are sick and the unvaccinated are sick. Measles is going to measle. And, this construct that measles will never rear its head ever again is false. In order for any pathogen to exist, it goes from host to host to host. And there's not an intermediate animal host. It hangs out in humans. Now, last year, under the Biden administration, did we hear about the 16 measles outbreaks in the U.S. according to the CDC's own data? Of course we didn't. So this is, unfortunately, as you mentioned, it is psychological war. It's fear porn. It's trying to discredit Secretary Kennedy. It's an effort to scare people and to think that other people are doing a bad job. The fact of the matter is, certain illnesses have always been with us, always will be with us. And have there been some deaths? There have. What were they caused by? They were caused by medical mismanagement. The two children that have died in Texas, there will be some lawsuits on those because they were mistreated, undertreated, and the medical establishment needs to be held accountable as well. You don't hear the mainstream media talking about, oh yeah, by the way, the first child that died from measles, very sad, had a secondary bacterial pneumonia. And that child died because they gave them wrong antibiotics and delayed them as well. And then the second child that died in Houston, they unfortunately didn't give proper care there either and denied respiratory treatments and denied adequate care. So do most people die from measles? Absolutely not. Are measles cases always going to be amongst us? Yeah. And I think the thing to emphasize here is that measles is very contagious, but some of the cases are in the vaccinated, some are in the double vaccinated. I don't care how many vaccines you get, your immune response, if your antibody levels are low, is going to be pretty negligible. So you're going to be susceptible. And why is that? Because of vitamin D, plain and simple. I had an employee years ago in the laboratory. She said, oh gosh, I've got to go back and get another hepatitis B booster. I don't have antibodies. Well, I always say antibodies, schmantibodies. Antibodies really don't matter. What matters is your strong innate immune system, your T cell response. But if you do want to have an adequate level of antibodies, or someone says you have to get a booster, the first thing you check is your vitamin D level and make sure you're in normal range. She was rickets level. And I said, okay, before you go get another injection of any sort, why don't you get your vitamin D levels up? Gave her a protocol. A month and a half later, checked her vitamin D, and I'll be darned if her detectable antibody levels to hepatitis B came back up. She didn't have to get that shot. Same thing with measles. Measles is, we're seeing these cases coming out of a long winter, and most people don't spend enough time outside, so we know their D levels are going to be low. And then the risk with measles, okay, yes, it spreads quickly. The what we call the R naught rate, how fast one person can spread it to how many people. It's one of the most infectious viruses. It's not a skin rash. It's a respiratory virus. And the shot itself is not without risk, as we know. And unfortunately, in certain countries in the world, you can get a single measles vaccine. And here in the US, you have to get a triple vaccine, which puts you at risk for other complications. Now, here's another thing. The unfortunate aspect of getting sick, no fun. But because of how it tunes a young, untrained immune system, your longer lifetime risk of other diseases and other cancers decreases if you have natural measles. So it's a hidden blessing as well. Most of our parents, our grandparents, they had measles, they'll never get it again. And that's because when you get the natural infection, you're exposed to certain proteins. Now, if you get the shot, you're getting a live weakened virus. And what most people don't know, and this is kind of a little nerdy and tricky, is technically the vaccine is a gain-of-function virus. Natural measles binds to one little lock and key receptor on our cells and gets entry into your cell and starts the infection process in the lungs. But when they modified the measles virus to be a live weakened virus in the shots, it binds to two different receptors. And that second one gives it super binding ability to most of the cells in your body instead of just a handful of cells in your body. So literally, measles is a gain-of-function virus. You won't hear a lot of people say that, but that's the fact of the matter. They turned it into a super virus to get a, quote, super immune response way back in the 1960s. And so we're still using 1960s technology in these shots, and it adds additional risk. Long-term swelling of the brain can happen in some patients that have gotten the measles shots, and that's a measles encephalitis. And measles as a live weakened virus can hang out in the body for a long time. The one thing I would love to see Texas do and the CDC do, every one of these, supposed 600 people that are infected now, they need to sequence. And we spent, quadrillions of dollars on the whole COVID debacle. And, we're able to test everybody in the world 20 times over. They need to actually go in, isolate the sequence from each of these infected persons. And I bet you the majority of what's circulating, like in the Disney outbreak several years ago, the majority of, or a high percentage, I don't want to say it was the majority, but it was 30, 40, 50%, somewhere around there, that was vaccine strain measles, meaning that it's the modified strain that's circulating. So what that tells me is there's an immune suppressed individual that had the measles shot and then got some other, shall we say, COVID shots, which we know suppresses the immune system and allow that measles virus to up or spread more easily in this population. So it could be a vaccinated person that's actually the super spreader. We don't know until they go in and sequence everything. Every individual, every case should be sequenced. Is it the vaccine strain or is it the wild type natural measles strain? That's what honest science and honest medicine would actually do. But at the end of the day, you have a normal vitamin D level, your susceptibility is going to be low. If you get sick with measles, Secretary Kennedy is absolutely right. When the virus infects your cells, it binds this little protein and it makes the cells want to fuse together in the respiratory lining. And when those cells fuse together, so you have a nice flat lining in your airway, all these nice flat cells, but when they fuse together, they ball up. Now that leaves little micro nicks in the lining of the airway, which makes the exposed underlayer, the submucosa, now it's basically an open door for bacteria to get into and cause a secondary bacterial pneumonia. Vitamin A, a high dose of vitamin A, in the moment of first symptoms, respiratory symptoms will inhibit that balling up, that syncytial process. So that's why vitamin A is critically important. Vitamin E is important. And then magnesium is important as well in terms of all the different enzyme reactions that happen. Vitamin E also protects the linings of the mucosa within the airways. And then most people think measles is a dotted rash. No, measles is a respiratory disease. The risk of measles is a pneumonia. If you are adequately nourished, if you are adequately supplemented, there are treatments for measles. And on top of that, guess what? There's another antiparasitic that is very effective against measles, and there are dozens of papers about this in the literature, and that's the medicine called nitazoxanide. And nitazoxanide, though an antiparasitic, a lot of these antiparasitics have antiviral activity. And it's, again, in the first couple of days, I would get on board that if I were in a clinic and hospital treating. How many doctors know about nitazoxanide as a measles treatment? Very few, probably less than a fraction of a percent. But the fact of the matter is we have treatments. We don't need to expose these children to something that's technically a gain of function 1960s technology, live weakened, supposedly weakened virus. It's not weakened. So don't panic, be rational, be healthy, treat your body appropriately, get outside, get the sunshine, get your vitamin D levels up, don't take high dose vitamin A. It can be toxic to the liver, but most people, because of our standard American diet and all the food-like substances and non-foods that we eat, most people are malnourished. They don't have adequate levels of our fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. And because of that, our immune systems are out of whack. 70% of the population got a genetic injection. That's put people's immune system in a weakened state. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And we're starting to see, those who never got a COVID shot are getting a lot of other infections as well, because people that did get a bunch of these shots and boosters are ending up being kind of basically petri dishes for a lot of viruses that we didn't used to see in the higher numbers that we're seeing. So it's multifactorial. These populations that are getting sick, they have the absolute human right to refuse experiment shots of any sort. And here in Idaho, we recently had legislation passed due to the great work of Leslie Manukian and her team. And I was honored to testify in committee on that bill. We have the Idaho Medical Freedom Act. No medical device, shot, pill, anything can ever be mandated. So this is what the nation needs to work towards, is medical freedom and making our own decisions. But at the same time, we need a medical establishment that's educated enough to actually treat infectious diseases and not have NIH protocols and just have a group mindset that's going to say, well, we only do this, but we don't do that. Now, we know there in Texas, the great work of Dr. Richard Bartlett. He was a hero with budesonide during the COVID era. Well, with measles, again, because it's a respiratory virus, the wonderful inhaled steroid budesonide would also be a first-line treatment. Why? Because the cytokine storm, the cytokine little waterfall that gets triggered, is turned off by that steroid. And so these children in some of these communities have been treated by some fantastic freedom doctors who have stepped in and gone out of their way to help these children. Dr. Bartlett, Dr. Proctor, a couple other doctors down in that region. Leaving one out, and I apologize for that. It's early here, and I'm still in farm work mode. But anyway, some great doctors have stepped in and done the adequate treatments, and these kids have gotten better very quickly. And it's not just kids getting it; it's vaccinated adults as well. So there's a lot of questions. Don't fear. Live life. It's not spreading all around the country. Consider it, there are 18, 19 million children, and there have been a couple hundred cases. Good grief. That's life. If we're going to live in fear of every infectious thing, then we're going to be locked indoors and afraid of everything. Live life. We're all going to get sick at some point in time. We want to minimize our sickness by being healthy. And I think that's really the bottom line here.
And the other important thing is for people to understand, and again, I didn't want to cut you off because you were going on a beautiful, well rehearsed. I don't want to call it a script because I feel like you were freestyling. It was almost like we were in the presence of Eminem, but with a medical degree. Um,
I'm a
but
musician at heart, so I like to
I,
improv.
I and
That,
listen,
that was
we and
all.
we
That was
and,
all
and we do.
freestyle.
We do love that. So I've got a couple points that, and you can address them however you want. But one of the things that I want to, kind of rehash is there are a lot of times, and it may not be a majority, or it might be right down the middle. There are a lot of times that during the COVID pandemic, there was somebody who could have died with an underlying issue, but it was listed as a COVID death. That is true. We now know that, correct? Same
Correct.
thing with measles. If somebody had a pneumococcal pneumonia or a bacterial infection that was the main cause of death, but they also were measles, there could technically be a measles related death, right? They're not saying that it was the main, as long as they say it was measles related. So there could be people that have died of this measles outbreak that had one or two underlying bacterial infections or even conditions. And it looks like you're acknowledging and saying yes. So my next question would be, when does the research start coming out? And again, this might be us strengthening our small circles, right? Where we may not be able to bring all horses to the stream to get fresh water. But when we start educating people on, you mentioned something that not a lot of people talk about, right? Which are the T cells. And there are a lot of good things, right? There's some reishi, shiitake mushrooms. There's vitamin C that you mentioned, vitamin D3. There's also some healthy omegas that can help create T cells. Also, exercise. Now, this one's controversial for children because, most of them can't practice breath work, but we've seen some incredible things with short-term cold exposure. So people doing things like an ice bath or cryotherapy because it puts the body into fight or flight. And that's a great way to increase T cell production inside of the body, which is notoriously known for helping to fight the measles, especially in the very beginning. When the infection is very in the beginning stages, getting those T cells up. And that could be things like intermittent fasting, which doesn't cost anything extra. In fact, it saves you money. You're eating less food.
Yeah, all of the above, Mike. I mean, you nailed it. And this is where everybody hears the word antibodies in the media. I guess it's such a hackneyed, tired term. You're absolutely 1,000% right. What really matters is that quick marine response. So you and I sitting here, we have 30 billion circulating T cells at the moment. And those are circulating, shaking hands with every cell in your body. Every 45 minutes, every cell in your body has been visited by a T cell, knocking on the door saying, "Hey, are you okay? Do you have an invader? Do you have cancer? Are you a normal cell or not?" So these are the Marines on the front line of our immune system. They're circulating, friend or foe, infected or not. And so to have a robust, trained first line response, those little Marines of the immune system, those T cells, it's critically important. And they're called T cells because we have a little gland right here behind our heart called the thymus gland. It's bigger in children when they're young. It's training those subsets for a lifetime. The older we get, once you hit 50, your thymus is mostly involuted and shrunken. But the things you mentioned, yes, exercise trains and modifies and upregulates those. There's a practice in Japan called Shinrin-yoku, which is walking in the woods. And they've found that if you go for a walk in the woods, it literally stimulates your killer T cells and increases the subsets. Being in a calm meditative state or having a meditative practice increases the activity of T cells. Cold exposure, absolutely. That shock to the system and then the rebound effect that you get revs up fresher T cells out of your bone marrow, or fresher cells out of the bone marrow to train new T cells. So there are so many things we can do, even trace minerals, like I mentioned magnesium, but another trace one that's important for T cell activity is trace selenium. And you can get adequate amounts of selenium from eating 3 Brazil nuts a day. And that's all the selenium you need in a day. But there's so many things that I think this is the MAHA movement going forward, and it's education of what are good inputs into the human body to optimize or to tune the immune system into being in a ready but not hyper-revved state. And we've gotten away from basic health and, everything's a pill, a needle, or a bottle, instead of, okay, I may get exposed to something, but I may never have a symptom because my T cells came in right away and said, hey, we already recognize this and we're going to get rid of it, or we're going to clear it quickly and we're not going to get sick or infected. So that's the goal of all the listeners, everybody in this society. Let's make America healthy again. Let's make the world healthy again. But it starts with, instead of Maha, it starts with Maiha. Make yourself healthy again. So we need to look at what are our individual deficiencies. Is it obesity? Is it an underlying condition? How do we get ourselves out of those things, and how do we make ourselves healthy so we're ready for any infection that comes along? And are there good medical treatments? Absolutely. But it starts with, let's maximize what we can do for our own individual body. Make yourself your own best doctor, and don't listen to the fear porn that does come out.
Quick, before we let you go, and we've got a couple minutes here, but I want to go back for our audience, and I want to roll that video. We have a clip here of Biden spreading fear porn and saying that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, which now, if you haven't been to covid.gov and seen all of the information that they put up on that website, gosh, man, if that wasn't a vindication for some of the people who've been screaming about what this was, which was a leak from a laboratory, and it was a long time in the making. Drake, go ahead, roll that video real quick, just so we can remind everybody of Biden's thoughts on purebloods.
That the CDC's new max guidance could sow confusion?
We have a pandemic because of the unvaccinated, and they're sowing enormous confusion. And the more we learn about this virus and the Delta variation, the more we have to be worried and concerned. And there's only one thing we know for sure. If those other 100 million people got vaccinated, we'd be in a very different world.
How would we be in a very different world when, Dr. Cole, the reports are now coming out that with each jab you receive, you're actually increasing your chances of contracting the virus or a disease. And we now know it is very short term. The antibodies that they were promising were going to be built up has not been true. And now you're getting the regret of the vaccinated. I call it the ROV, right? It's just people coming out and saying, I hate this. I wish I never would have done this. And my favorite thing, Dr. Cole, is when something backfires, right? So you get the left out there that put this mainstream headline out there that are like, the vaccines are still safe, right? And then you get all the comments and they're like, my uncle died. My aunt died. My father got sick. My father had a heart attack. My 17-year-old nephew, had myocarditis and had a heart attack on the field and had to have 3 different surgeries. And again, I was one of those people who was very active in sports growing up, right? So in the 80s and the 90s, I don't remember. And I asked my mom, I was like, do you remember, like, from track meets to baseball? My sisters all played softball. And I'd ask my mom, I was like, do you ever remember even hearing of a kid having a heart attack? She's like, maybe like heat exhaustion. She's like, maybe someone wasn't drinking enough water. But she's like, I'd never, ever, in all of the years of travel softball, soccer, track, we didn't have all these athletes having cardiovascular issues. And it's like now people are starting to wake up and they're like, something doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And that was certainly a tragic, sad clip of someone with neurodegenerative disease lying to the American people. And we know that these years later, we knew it going, through it. Those of us who spoke out early on and lost everything because of it. But, I remember the basketball player Len Bias, and he dropped suddenly, but that was, there are rare conditions where your main artery is actually, instead of on the surface of the heart, is, pressed under the heart muscle. That's a rare condition. So as a pathologist, I was aware of a rare sudden death every now and then in a young patient. And I'd seen a couple of those. But, 1 or 2 a year you would hear about all around the country. I'd hear it more because of the forensic pathology journals that I would read. But yeah, we saw so much more of it and so much silent myocarditis. I'm concerned about this next generation and how many of them have taken a lot of hits and have some scar tissue in the heart and are taking time bombs. My good friend, Dr. Kirk Milhone, he's seeing kids that have resting heart rates while just sitting on the couch. Their heart will race up into the 140s, 160s, 180s while doing nothing. And then, we'll drop down into the 40s or the 60s and have horrible POT syndrome, but also just have this silent tachycardia, racing heart. And a lot of this is being seen by pediatric cardiologists. You're not hearing, that's what the mainstream media should be reporting on. How many kids are having cardiac manifestations now after getting one or two? Thankfully, most people stopped at one or two of these deadly genetic injections. But we're finding that the long-term consequences, and any gene therapy, you really don't start seeing the bad outcomes until you're 5, 10, 15. And that's, I'm hoping and praying against it, but that's, I think, what we really need to be vigilant about. Not an outbreak of a common childhood infection that most people are going to do fine getting. I think we really need to focus some of the research and energy into what harm did we do over the last 5 years with a genetic shot. And you're absolutely right. So I think, common sense should reign. I think people need to take care of their health, take care of themselves. Jab regret's real. Regret a vaccine, ROV, I like that phrase. I may borrow it from you from time to time, Mike. But I think it's important that we're a little more vigilant about things that are more important, like that. I'm not saying measles isn't important, and I'm not saying people don't die with complications that measles may have been part of the pathway, but the ones that have died so far have not died from measles, and I think that's so critically important.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I want to make our audience clear of, we've gone on multiple times with Dr. Judy Mikovits. So if you guys do know anybody that is suffering from long haul COVID or from the bioweapon shot, we're big fans of the L-theanine and the beetroot that is inside of the Cardio Miracle product. And again, we're not here to sell people things. We want you to do your own research. But the studies that are coming out about it repairing the endothelial nitric oxide synthase is absolutely incredible. The results that people are seeing with taking the 2 scoops 12 hours apart. And again, there's a lot of other things that you guys can do. I highly recommend getting the exercise. You guys can eat whole beets. There's a lot of vegetables that you can get that are rich in theanine. It's just sometimes people don't have the time to go source the ingredients. So if you're not one of those people, I highly recommend going to airwaterhealing.com. And we would love to give you the closing statement. Doc, if there's anywhere where you publish your work, if you have a Substack, we always want to bring attention to the work, and we love what you guys are doing in Idaho. I wish the rest of the United States will follow what you guys are doing and not mandating, certain types of injections or mandating that certain procedures have to be done and giving the, public health a shake and a run for its money and allowing, parents and grandparents to make decisions for their children and grandchildren. Where can we find you? Where can they reach you?
Sure. You can reach me on my website at the letter R, COLE, rcolemd.com. I can also be reached on X at DRCOLE, the number 12. And I do have some writings coming out, and I think they'll be worth following there. And take care of yourselves. Don't live in fear. Fear is bad for the immune system. Live with confidence, live with joy, and make yourself healthy again, and be part of this great movement and follow the example. Get involved in politics. I've been able and blessed and privileged to do my small part in the political realms as well. Get involved. Make your states free like Idaho and the freedom-loving people and the great citizens here and what we value. These are American values, and I hope people follow this example and push their legislators and their governors to do the same thing. So thank you for the opportunity of sharing with your audience today, Mike, and everybody. Just live a joyful life. Go out there, be happy, be healthy.
That's awesome. Yeah, make yourself healthy again, guys. You can't start with America. Let's just start with you, the most important person in your life. It's got to be you, because if you're not there, then you're not going to be there for your family. So show up for yourself watch the food that you're eating. And we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be bringing in Dr. Ben Marble. I'm so glad that you weren't in the operating room today. Last time we had Dr. Bartlett on, he was on call. So it was incredible to be able to have an ER doc sitting here. We were talking about budesonide and what he was doing during COVID, and to see, India and Japan and other countries out there that are now following his protocol, man, what a great humanitarian, what a great asset to the American people and to the MAHA movement. Thank you again, Dr. Cole, for being here for us, and we look forward to having you on the show again, guys. Follow his work, follow his website. We'll put it in the link below. We're going to go to a quick commercial break and then bring in Dr. Marble.
Are you looking for monthly income without the risk of stocks? Well, here's something you won't hear about on CNBC. There's a unique way to collect royalty checks directly from America's most productive oil fields. No exploring, drilling, or operational headaches. You simply collect checks month after month. The best part? You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. The Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Litchenfield, breaks down what he believes is the #1 loyalty royal play for 2025. So visit LindellOilBoom.com now to learn more. That's LindellOilBoom.com. That's LindellOilBoom.com now to learn more. That's LindellOilBoom.com. Stop buying oil stocks and start collecting oil royalty checks instead.
Well, nobody wants to die, right? Nobody wants to die. There's a whole summit out there called Don't Die with Brian Johnson. Well, we want to start our own summit called Don't DYE. Now, I know there was a lot of people this weekend that were dyeing their Easter eggs, and hopefully that wasn't dye that was based from petroleum. Before we bring in our next doctor, Dr. Marble, we are going to spill the beans with a quick little video that Drake has pulled up for us to talk about some of the dangers of synthetic food dyes. Drake, go ahead, roll that footage.
What are these food dyes actually doing to kids especially?
Yeah, well, if you look at the ingredients for Fruit Loops 20 years ago, it was very, very different than it is today. And today we use chemicals in Fruit Loops that are banned in virtually every country in the world. So if you buy Fruit Loops today in Canada, it is made with vegetable dyes. If you buy it here in the United States, it's made with petroleum synthetics. And as I said in that clip, nobody wants to eat petroleum. So when we went to meet with the food companies, I said to my staff, if they want to eat petroleum, they should put it in their food themselves at home. They shouldn't be feeding it to Americans who, without their knowledge, without their consent. And today we announced that we're going to get it out of the food. So there are 9 dyes, Jesse. 2 of them we're going to ban immediately, orange bee and red dye 2. We're going to accelerate the removal of red dye 3. So we're going to bring it down to under a year. And the other 6 dyes, within 18 months, we hope to get them out of all the food. And that's just the beginning. I mean, one of the problems is that the science about these additives has been systematically suppressed for 30 years because the industry has been running this agency. And we're getting rid of all of those conflicts. We've gotten rid of most of them. And we're going to do real science. And we're going to do science precisely on the issues that Americans care about, making sure their kids are getting food that isn't poison.
When you start talking about the dyes, guys, there's absolutely so many of them that are out there. We've got the yellow, the red. He talked about banning the first 2. These have all been linked to ADD, ADHD, hyperactive disorders, not to mention the allergic reactions. Yellow 5, which is tatrazine, known to trigger allergic reactions in sensitive people. We want to dive deep into this topic because we think it's important for people to understand what is hiding inside of our food and literally hiding in plain sight. We want to welcome to the show Dr. Marble. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good to be here. Doing pretty good. Great to be here.
Yeah, and if anybody who doesn't know Dr. Ben, he's the founder of myfreedoctor.com, who has done an incredible amount of free visits for people and have done incredible work. You guys can learn more about them at myfreedoctor.com. So talk to us about these dyes. I'm kind of, for the I stand for like the Aldi approach, right? When Aldi found out that, some of these dyes were bad, they just removed them immediately. They like literally packed up the food on pallets and sent it back to the vendors. I love that approach. I really wish there was a way that we could kind of strike while the iron's hot and say, hey, if there's some of these dyes in some of these foods, the grocery stores should be the ones to pull the plugs and protect their people.
Absolutely. Well, as I see it, Bobby Kennedy Jr., he's, tackling, he campaigned on the Make America Healthy Again agenda. And I would say this is kind of like the low-hanging Fruit Loops topic. Certainly, there's all types of bad types of, use a simple word, poisons that are in the food, and other various poisons. And so this is an early, the starting point. And certainly, yes, we need these bad products out of our food supply. But I try to make the bigger point that we need to get rid of all the various poisons that, the big corporations have been putting bad things in the food and the water. Certainly the vaccines, that's kind of my big concern is the COVID vaccines has been a huge problem. So getting these artificial dyes out of the food supply start, we want to, see RFK Jr. ban all these poisons, and hopefully we'll eventually get to the shots. But yes, we have to make our food supply safer and, make our country healthier again.
Yeah, and one of the things that most people don't realize, and if you can talk about this a little bit, and I know that not all of them are, but when we start talking about these dyes that are petroleum based, especially when you talk about the bioweapon, and I think one of my favorite things that I ever, was able to visualize, Dr. Ben, was when somebody had talked to me about the difference between synthetic high metal inoculations versus natural supplements that came from the God's creation of the universe. And they said that the idea of trying to clean a lake by adding more poison to the lake is literally what you're talking about when you're just focused on inoculation, right? So can you talk a little bit about the difference between natural dyes and petroleum-based synthetic dyes, which are obviously the most important for the chopping block right now?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, the Rockefeller model about 100 years ago, they decided to push all these petroleum-based products because that was the way for them to make more money. So they tried to take control of medicine and pushing, pharmaceuticals that can be derived from petroleum and trying to steer everybody away from more natural based products. And so we need to get off the petroleum based pharmaceuticals, and we need to steer people back to the natural products because the natural products are much safer. The problem is, if they can't patent it, then they can't make a lot of money off of it. So they don't want cheap, easy, low cost natural products. They want something that they can patent and charge, big dollars for. And that's been the problem for the past many decades. So I think, Bobby Kennedy Jr. seems well attuned to that and knows that that's a problem, and hopefully will help continue to get us off of these petroleum-based products and get us back towards more natural products, because it's just healthier for the people. And there's countless examples of that. So he's doing good work, and this is just a start. We need. A lot of people are impatient. We've been sick. We've all witnessed what happened with the COVID vaccines. The COVID vaccines, in 4 years have killed more people than all the other vaccines combined over 3 decades, proving they're the most deadly vaccines ever. They should have been pulled off the market by February of 2021, but the FDA and the CDC and all the people in charge, apparently bribed by big pharma, I call them big pharma, to continue pushing these shots when we know they're causing harm all around the world. And so what we've witnessed, the shots have been given to approximately 6 billion people globally. And I tell people it's the worst mass poisoning in human history. It should have never happened. So step one is you got to get the poison shots off the market. So I think the low-hanging fruit on that would be hopefully RFK Jr. could pull the EUA authorization, because we don't have an EUA anymore. How are they still legal through an EUA authorization? It doesn't make any sense. We know the cause and harm. Every shift I work in the ER, which is where I'm at right now, and I see the horror stories from these shots every shift I work. I mean, I tell people my personal family story. My uncle took Moderna, two weeks later had a massive heart attack. Had a sister-in-law took 2 Pfizer. She got diagnosed with turbo cancer. She's dead now. Brother-in-law took 2 Pfizer. He just had his new kidney cancer cut out. So that's 3 of my immediate family members. But I see it every shift in the ER. I see people coming in with problems, strokes, myocarditis, heart attacks, all kinds of blood clots, DVT, blood clots in the lungs, pulmonary emboli, weird cancers, all sorts of bad problems. And the one thing the people have in common, especially in the younger people, is it's all the people who took these shots. So we know that they're causing a lot of harm, and we need to stop the shots. We need a halt on all the COVID vaccines. The whole mRNA platform should be banned globally. What we've been witnesses to this greatest mass poisoning in human history, but we've also been, they unleashed the bioweapons on the world at the end of 2019, going into 2020. This is a bioweapons war, and they poisoned billions of people. We've had millions of people have died already. And so when you've got a great mass poisoning, the first thing you do is you stop poisoning people. So this is why I try to, focus on getting the shots pulled. We've been banging the drum to stop the shots for years now. So hopefully the politicians will start listening. And that's part of the problem, is the foxes guarding the hen house. All the politicians were pushing the shots because they thought they were safe and effective, but as it turned out, they were poison. That's one of the big focuses is we got to get these shots off the market. Then we have to treat the poisoning victims, all the vaccine victims that are having problems. Many of them need treatment. And so we're trying to, emphasize treatment. That's where we offer treatment at myfreedoctor.com, all 50 states. We've done hundreds of thousands of free doctor visits to America, and we keep delivering that to the people, trying to help as many people as we can. But ultimately, it's up to the politicians to get these shots off the market, and hopefully they'll do that as soon as possible. We also want to see arrest of the poison pushers. For example, I call him Dr. Death Fauci. Dr. Death Fauci should be arrested for mass murder. He delivered these gain-of-function bioweapons to the world. This was a plan, intentional. It was not a lab leak. This is where I'm going to do some pushback, because the White House did they made the website about a week ago where they updated the website to push the lab leak theory. And my argument on that is it wasn't a leak. This was an intentionally released bioweapon. They released it to take down the Trump 2020 campaign, and that's how they stole the election. And we've witnessed all kinds of bad things ever since. So, we've got to get these shots off the market.
And not, I'm sorry. Yeah. Just to be able to go back to it, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're leaking or kind of combining together, is what you're talking about was absolute mass genocide, right? It was absolutely horrible what they did. I was one of those people, and, you can call me a tinfoil conspiracy theorist hat. I was one of those people that believed that they had purposely hand-selected people that were infected and sent them to the most places where they would be able to be spread viral. Airports. You go to Detroit, you go to Minneapolis, you go through here. They knew how dangerous this was. That gain-of-function research was funded by our own government. They had gone in there and purposely allowed and hand-selected the places where they're going. Like, we're to believe that it was a wet seafood market, from a bat. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way they'll ever be able to prove that something in nature could be that deadly and be able to be that contagious. They made it. I want to go back to dyes for a second, because we now know that red 3 has been linked, to thyroid issues. It has been linked to cancer. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, I want to talk about the fact that there is no nutritional benefit to a lot of these dyes.
Correct.
They are there purely for aesthetics. It's for pleasing. And I know some of these dyes, we've got teenagers, young children that are lathering their faces, putting on cosmetics and makeup with these toxic dyes in them, and they're not having any beneficial, positive improvements for their skin conditions and the food. You literally go to the Europe countries, there are a lot of the European Union, and you have warnings. Here in the United States, there's none. I have never seen a child go to reach for a bag of Skittles and then there being like a big orange warning label there saying, warning, this contains a petroleum-based synthetic dye. Just to our north,
Correct.
our Canadian neighbors, they have different variations of cereals that are completely different in the ingredients, additives, and preservatives and dyes than we have here in the US. Why can't we just put labels?
Correct. It's you can take the same product in USA versus Europe, and the European product may have 3 or 4 ingredients, whereas the US product has like 15 ingredients. And so it's the bureaucracy and the regulation that's been corrupted in America, because bribes work. People get bribed, and people do bad things because of it. So I agree with everything you're saying. We got to get all these bad ingredients. We need simple. We need to go back to simple, safe food that's actual. What we have is a fake food problem. We got fake news everywhere, and we got fake food everywhere. And people are just pigging out on fake food and wondering why we have this obesity pandemic. The obesity pandemic is because of all this fake food. We need to get back to eating real healthy food and get all these bad chemicals out of our food supply. I'm mentioning Skittles. Why is there a Skittles drink? There's a Skittles drink. There's nothing healthy about Skittles. They shouldn't even be allowed to have a drink. Sure, if you want to have candy, fine. Everybody knows candy's bad for you and rots your teeth. But why do they get to make Skittles drink with all these bad dyes in them and all this? It doesn't make any sense. So we need the regulators to do their job and get these various bad chemicals that add nothing good and possibly do cause harm, get them out of our food supply. This is not rocket science. This is just common sense 101. Yeah, we need the bad chemicals out of our food. Get all the poisons out of the food. We need to ban all the various poisons, which is another thing RFK is supposed to work on, is tackling the geoengineering, aka chemtrails, which is basically where they're spraying the sky with all kinds of bad things, heavy metals. And if you look at Mike Adams' work, what he's growing out on these plates, who knows what they're spraying us with? It's nothing good. It's the whole idea that we're going to block the sun and help fight climate change by changing the climate. It makes no sense. They've unleashed this insane, basically we've had these insane billionaires unleashing this mad science on the world, and they didn't ask us for permission, but they're basically spraying us like cockroaches in the sky, putting poison in the air, putting poison in the food, poison in the water. And we need RFK Jr. and the MAHA agenda to remove all these poisons from our food, from our water, from the sky, from the shots, etc. And that's how we're going to make the country healthy again.
And when you start considering that there's things out there, right? You've got turmeric extract, you got beetroot extract, we've got annatto, we've got all these other things like spirulina with the deep blues and deep greens that we can use to naturally flavor. And if we start awarding some of these grants, what if we just took half of the money that's going to the, people that are over the age of 130? What if we redirect that Social Security money for those, and again, I was at the store the other day and I saw a 250-year-old lady, and her Social Security benefits had been taken away and she just withered away. It was just dust that had got sucked up into an air vent, got mixed in with the A-peel system that Walmart installed to coat their vegetables with wax type substance, which, I'm completely, and I don't know, man. I'm thinking about.
We got to mention Bill Gates' appeal. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's Bill Gates' appeal, Kill Gates. That appeal product that they put on all the fruit is not good for you. It's unhealthy. We need a ban on that as well. It's just all these various mad sciences that they've unleashed on the world. We need a ban on the various mad sciences they've unleashed on the people. We need a ban on the gain of function research. We need all sorts of things to be solved. And so the MAHA movement is hopefully going to address these things, and the Fruit Loops and the food dyes is a place to start. Nobody is arguing that those things are healthy. They're certainly not healthy, and they need to be removed. And kudos to him for getting that done. But we need to, not forget the other bad things that are in the food supply and in the shots. Certainly the shots, I think most people I've talked to, the shots are the number one concern as far as the various poisons. They're the thing that need to be pulled the most, because we have all these poison. Like I said earlier, every shift I'm working in the ER, I'm seeing the bad outcomes from these shots. Now, most of the people know not to take them anymore, but why are they giving these kids? Kids do not die from COVID, period. But you're going to give them, the child schedule recommends 3 shots before the, 1 year old of the COVID vaccines. This is experimental mRNA gene therapy, as they called it, and it turns you into a literal genetically modified organism, also known as a mutant. For example, Elon Musk is a literal mutant now. Most people in the media don't talk about this. Everybody who took a shot is a literal mutant. So we have, basically 6 billion mutants around the world now. I have about 2 billion. And the future of humanity depends on the non-mutants. We're seeing a lot of the sperm counts. The people who took the shots are going away. The eggs are, the women having miscarriages. I think Jim Thorpe said 84% of women who took the shots during pregnancy had miscarriages. Birth rates are going down all over the world, and it's a great mystery. It's not a great mystery because of the COVID vaccines. That's another reason why we have to get them pulled. So we need, these shots banned globally. The whole gain of function research, the idea of let's make it as deadly as possible, just in case somebody releases it, and then of course they release it on purpose, is nuts. So we've all been witnesses to it, and they try to hide what has happened, but we know what happened, and we know they poison us, and the poisoning needs to stop.
And the satire thing, I started to smile when I started thinking about it. It wasn't something that you said, but there was a video that was going around, and it was called CASA, KASA, Keep America Sick Always. And it was like it was just a satire. They were making a fun of the MAHA action, and he's like, yeah. we're so sick of Robert F. Kennedy taking our food dyes, and we want to go back, and we want to be able to have as much liquid sugar as we possibly need. We want our genetically modified foods. This is what makes us feel good. It's what makes us comfortable. And they're like, if you guys don't stop right now, what you're going to do is you're going to put hundreds of thousands of good working people that have worked very hard to poison our country. You're going to put them out of business, and then you're going to correct the curvature, and you're going to see the people getting healthier, and profits are going to start going down. Hospital employees are going to be laid off because they don't have anybody to take care of anymore, because everyone's going to get healthy. Think about what you guys are doing. And even though it was satire, it's almost like you have to almost draw that line. But like we have such a mental instability in this country that if you went out there to New York right now, or went into Chicago, and you had a Keep America Sick Always petition, people would sign it. Yes. They'd be like, we want to make sure that we've got our rights. We want to make sure that Donald Trump and Robert F. Kennedy want to decrease the 100 grams of sugar that people are taking in on a daily rate, and they're going to take away our chances to freely choose whether we want type 1, 2, or 3 diabetes. We got 60 seconds before we got to close. Please tell us again your website, your email, share your socials. If anybody wants to support your work, I can only imagine how much it costs to run a website like myfreedoctor.com. If our listeners want to get involved and share your socials, just please give us a last 60 seconds is yours.
Very good. Yeah, certainly, anybody who needs a doctor visit, go to myfreedoctor.com, fill out a patient intake form. We treat people all 50 states every day of the week. I'm on my main social. I've been banned from all social media. I tell people I'm the most banned doctor on earth, but my main one now is on X. It's at Marble Benjamin on X. That's my X handle, which is where I do most of my social media. Certainly, we try to help everybody we can on myfreedoctor.com, and keep spreading that domain to other people. Anybody who needs a doctor can go there, and we'll try to help them out. We've also been doing exemptions from the vaccines for anybody who doesn't want to take a shot. And can't get an exemption, get in touch with me, and we'll get you one for the vaccines, or if you need a mask exemption or vaccine exemption. We're just trying to do various things we can to help fight this evil agenda and to help make everybody healthier and get through this. We're in the middle of a world war. This is World War III. It started by 2020 when they unleashed the bioweapons. The woke mind virus, the worst brainwashing in human history, is proven by the fact that we just got 6 billion people to do the same. And that's what's causing the mental illness you were just talking about. It's the people who are captured by this evil brainwashing, commonly known as political correctness. They're all crazy. Nobody is trans. Nobody can change their sex. We do need to make asylums great again. That's what I think MAGA stands for, make asylums great again, because they let all the insane people out of the asylums. If you think you're trans, you're actually just insane. You cannot change your sex. So anyway, I could rant on that for a while, but thanks for having me, Mike. You're doing
Not a problem.
good work. Keep up the good work.
We'll have you on again, and I tell everybody the most important letter in the alphabet is that lowercase t, right? Because Jesus Christ died for all of us. He died for our sins. So we'll continue to pray for you, pray for your mission.
Absolutely.
Everybody go to myfreedoctor.com, refer it, share it on the socials, and he gave you his Instagram account, his X account, so you guys know where to follow him. And until then, Friday, we'll see you guys on another episode of Make America Healthy again with Mike. That's Maha with Mike signing out. Thank you, and God bless.